Hey, what's up, guys? It is Rapmark here. So, doing my episode 5 review for Miss Marvel. Where have we gone at this point? So, needless to say, I'm really confused at where this show is going, who this show is made for. Uh, I mean, we have this change of scene and then change of time and then which takes away a lot of other focus from where I want the story to be, the things that I actually care about. The villains are just awful. I'm not, I'm not a fan of either the DDC or I mean it says here written DODC, but it's just easier to say DDC, so that's what I'm going to refer to them from here on. And the clandestines are just it just blows my mind. Like the leader of the clandestines, Najma, it's like she kills people for like whatever reason. Her motivations are just like okay, just flip the script. And again, the DDC is just a bunch of cartoon characters. It's so bizarre. So the thing that I liked about this, I did like the sort of history set piece. Um, I liked how they started this episode, as sort of a like newsreel of how India and Pakistan are being partitioned, and this is in 1947. The original thing takes place in 1942. So she's running from a soldier, kills him, like no context, but I mean she's clearly on the run. This is after they find the bangle, and I'm just like this, like I'm at this point I'm interested, but at the same time I know that it's it's not a focus that I'm really interested. Like if this was its own thing, I'd be like, okay, this is kind of cool. But then I'm just like, we're on episode 5 of a 6 episode series, uh, and I'm just not emotionally invested in any of the stuff that's going on. Like this would be a great either first episode or having all this stuff sort of spread out over the series, in terms of context. But having a whole episode dedicated to this is it just and then the whole time travel thing, it kind of blows my mind because again, it's not Back to the Future rules. Like Marvel has its own things of rules, which Banner, explains. You don't really change anything. You just create another branch if you do that. So how this is an exception, I don't know. Maybe someone can explain that to me. But yeah, it's a little bit weird. She's using her powers in the open in this episode. No one seems to notice, and I'm just like, all right. I mean, I get it's kind of chaotic, but I mean, it's not subtle. It's not the most subtle thing in the world. Like it just makes no sense. And with the whole context of this episode, it's like, why do all of her neighbors, relatives, whatever, why do they think that she's such a terrible person? I mean, she's just someone who, had no history, no one knew where she came from. She married Hassan, and they had a baby, and then she died during partition because weird stuff. Um, so yeah, I don't get that. I mean, rumors, all that, but I mean it's just I don't know. I just don't get it. I just don't get it myself. Um, what else do we got? Yeah, I don't know. We're just gonna go right into it. So I explained the beginning of it. So Hassan is a he's an independence activist. He's also someone who sells roses. And at this time, because the plan for the British to grant them independence is like it started. So, from what I know about India, like after the Muslim initial Muslim conquests, there were no strong Indian states until the Mathurajas, and then the British East India Company, pretty much conquered the whole subcontinent. But I mean, Hindus and Muslims had been living together for centuries at this point. Um, but yeah, once the whole split and the mess that the British created, uh, yeah, Muslims were very much a minority in a large part of the subcontinent, and so a huge a huge sense of nationalism. The fact that most Muslims were still very religious, very conservative, and a lot of Indians were very secular and liberal. So yeah, Hindus and Muslims began to fight, and then yeah, so it had to be partitioned, and so a lot of Muslims had to go north into what is now Pakistan. So that's my understanding of it. So anyway, I digress. Uh, so Aisha runs into Hassan. They fall in love. They have a child, and then 5 years later, so in 47, when the actual partition takes place because the British are pulling out. Um, Namja finds Aisha, and she's just like, "Go get the bangle." And she's like, "Yeah," but she doesn't want to go home. She has a family at this point, and so she convinces Hassan to leave, which I mean kind of works out anyway because it sounds like no one was buying his wares anymore because he was Muslim, and I guess that the area where they were at was vastly majority Hindi. I'm assuming. Um, the problem with this whole thing is as interesting as it was, it didn't really go into very much depth. I mean, it covered surface level stuff, and I did find it interesting and some levels fascinating, but it didn't go into it in depth to keep me like to give it fully a pass, while at the same time, uh, this whole series is based on something else. So anyway, like I said, this whole thing just seemed like a distraction. This whole element of this episode just seemed like a huge distraction from what you're invested in. And of course, it turns out that so I'll get to that in a sec. But Aisha gets the bangle, leaves it with Santa, and goes to the train. She realizes that Namja's there, and Namja, in spite of Aisha being the only one who knows where this bangle is, stabs and kills her, and it's it's just it's super bad writing. Like, what is this person's motivation? If she really wanted to go home that bad, she would not have killed her. I I just don't understand. But yeah, so Sana and Hassan get separated at the train station. I mean, it's hectic. He's got a bad leg. Um, so like I kind of get that. I mean, it's one of those iffy, but I can give that a pass. But so Aisha's dying. She's been stabbed, but she summons Kamala and interacts with her and asks her to guide her. And then so Kamala does a whole projection of platforms and then stars, and it's just like it was her the whole time, which again I don't understand how this is an exception to what is established Marvel lore of time travel, but yeah. It just seemed like a goofy distraction, and then they're back at the present, and so Namja has opened the veil of Noor, uh, and that's when one of the clandestines goes to go home and turns to stone, and then this really, really cheesy CGI skeleton. It's the CGI was not great in in this. It was pretty bad. Uh, needless to say. Um, and then Namja is just like she doesn't care. I'm gonna go home. And then Kamal's just like, "What about your son?" It's just like I don't have him anymore. I abandoned him. I let him go. Whatever. And then she's just like, all of a sudden she's just like, you know what? You're right. I'm gonna shut this. I'm gonna sacrifice myself and shut the veil. And then she gives her power to her son Cameron, which how did you at no point have I seen her do anything magical, let alone her power. And now suddenly he has the same powers as Kamala, and this is it's so ridiculous. It's like I am so detached from the story at this point. And I'm just like, what is going on? We're going into some really loose writing at this point. They're playing the writing really loose on this episode at this point. This series is going taking some really crazy turns. So yeah, after that she transfers her power to Cameron and then sacrifices herself. So sure, and then Sana Maniba, her mother, comes and just like I told you so, and then so she accepts her powers. Just like that was quick, but sweet. All right, and then we find out a little bit more about Maniva, and she was a Bon Jovi groupie, essentially, where she was quite a rebel, and man, she goes from that to a little bit more conservative as she grows older, and I guess as she had her kids. So, yeah. So then we go back to Cameron, who is now he runs into Bruno's. He's taking out the trash. Can you please? Can I please stay with you, Brian? And then he's just like, "My name is Bruno." When they're upstairs, he's just like, "I'm so sorry. I legitimately thought your name was Brian." And then we have the second baddie, the DDC, a drone, comes and is out their window. Cameron, hits it with his newfound power, which God knows how that works, and it fires a missile. Like this, this is the Department of Damage Control, and it's freaking shooting missiles in a residential area. Whatever. Um, so it gets destroyed, and then it obliterates the store below them. So that's like I don't know. Like the first 2 3 episodes of this show, I was just like I was willing to give it a chance, and there was a lot of good things about it that I was enjoying. I was being attached to, and then you change the setting, and then you change the time, and you're distracting from all these other things. And there's a lot of things that need to be resolved, and I guarantee some of them are just going to be resolved in like a line or two. Like with her friend Nakia not talking with her, that's probably going to be unsatisfactorily resolved, and yet resolved at some point. Uh, Again, is it going to be Cameron or is it going to be or Bruno? you know, and then her fully taking the Ms. Marvel. Uh, what else we got? The whole DDC. I mean, there's just so much to be tied in. I don't see how it can all be satisfactorily, tied up into a neat bow and just like, hey, look at how awesome this series was. Like, unfortunately, I'm not feeling it at this point, and just with the last 2 episodes, they've played it so loose, and it seems to be played on more for the drama, for like the teens, rather than actually telling a good story. And just the horrible writing and the terrible CGI and the lack of stylization. Like a lot of the stylization that I enjoyed about the first 2 3 episodes have not been a big factor in the last two. I'm hoping they make a comeback for the last episode, but I'm just like I don't even know. Like I'm this close to being fully just disconnected with this whole thing. And this is going to tie into the Marvels movie coming up next year. Like the first 3 episodes, I was just like, okay, I'm kind of liking Kamala and her definitely her family, and I'm just like, all right, all right. But now at this point, I'm just so detached because it's been focusing on like dumb shit that I don't care about. That I don't understand. Like, I don't know who the Red Daggers are at this point. What was the whole point of that? I mean, the whole reconnect. Like, I appreciate the cultural aspects of it, but it didn't cover them in any sort of depth. It was all surface level stuff, so it didn't seem necessary. It's just like you could have done this otherwise. Like this is an origin story of Miss Marvel essentially, and you're turning it into like this whole other thing which I don't care about. Like just stick with a simple story. Like it's not hard. So anyway, that those are my thoughts on this. What am I giving this? Ugh. I mean, I didn't hate it, but there was bad writing. There's just bad decisions being made. Performances are still fairly on point. I just feel that they're giving just crap material. I'm probably going to give this a 4. This is the lowest. This is even lower than last episode because while I did enjoy the historical set pieces and I enjoyed, what they were trying to do on some levels, there were a lot of stuff I didn't enjoy. Like I still hate the DDC, the the clandestines were a total joke, and yeah, they did not. That story thread just ended very unsatisfactorily and confusingly as well. Her powers, like there's just I didn't like. There was more that I didn't like in this episode than I liked. But again, I didn't hate it. If this was on its own thing, or if this was like episode 1 of this series, then I'd be like, all right, this is not bad. But no, this is episode 5. So no, I have to give this a 4. This is a dead 4. uh I could give it a 3, but no, there were some things I actually did really enjoy about this, which I've talked about. So yeah. I'm hoping that they can pull a rabbit out of their hat for the last episode, because yeah, this is not going well. Anyway, these are just my thoughts. I'm hoping for the best. Kind of expecting the worst at this point, but I'm crossing my fingers that they can at least, salvage something from the last episode. So anyway, that's my thoughts. Let me know what you guys think, and I will see you guys next time. See ya.